everyone, Teri Wellbrock here, host of the Healing Place podcast. It is December 23rd as I record this message, so for all of you around the world who celebrate Christmas, I wish you a very blessed and joyous holiday. Hoping, yes, that your day is filled with love and laughter and friendship and peace and whatever it is that brings you joy. As far as today's episode, holy moly. So this Healers of Hilton Head series I decided to do, it was Angel Whisper. And I said, yeah, I think that's a great idea to focus on the healers on the island. I moved to this island 2.5 years ago. And so I'm meeting these amazing healers. And Christine Knight, who I'm interviewing today, after this interview, I did make an appointment and I had a session with her and it rocked my world. For so long, for those of you who've listened to the show for the past 5 years, you know, because I've talked about it, I've done EMDR. I did it 4 years when I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm back at EMDR and it's helped tremendously. I would truly say it was life-altering. But there was these certain little things that we just couldn't get to for some reason, whether I wasn't ready, just couldn't tap into it. And so this session with Christine, the hypnotherapy session and parts work, we integrated a lot of different modalities into it and the work that she's doing. And had this aha moment. I was taken back to 3 years old, and it was the first time that my mom called for my dad because I told my mom no about saying my nighttime prayers. And so I used my voice. I said no. I was trying to test my boundaries with my mom, and so there was the faith component of it, and she called for my dad, and it was the first time my dad hit me. And so that was so incredibly powerful for me to recognize that moment, because until that point in my childhood, I had felt safe. I felt loved and safe, and everything shifted in that moment by the using my voice part of it, the faith part of it, the being hit by someone that was supposed to love me and protect me and take care of me. Now, there's a whole journey. My dad and I did tremendous healing work, and so he later apologized when I was 10 years old for ever hitting me after he sought therapy and counseling. But it just is such a powerful's not the word, an incredible light that is just being shown upon this moment in time, this moment in my childhood that shifted things and created these new neuron pathways in my brain and created this trauma response in my body. And I didn't know what to do with it as a 3-year-old. And so, again, all the stuff we talk about on this show, but I did have a session. I wanted to talk about it beforehand. I could sit and talk for hours on end about the session itself. But I just wanted to let you know that very, very powerful, tremendous healing work happened in that moment and in that session. So, yeah, there you go. Wonderful. So if you have an opportunity, reach out to Christine. All right, well, enjoy this episode. And again, I send you giant hugs of holiday happiness. And I truly do hope you have a blessed and joyous and peace-filled holiday Christmas season. Thanks. Now for the show. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and another of one of the series of the Healers of Hilton Head. And I just want to say a little blurb before I do the intro for our wonderful guest today. My purpose with this series is not just to shine a light on these amazing healers on Hilton Head Island and the Lowcountry and this area, but for all of you across the globe. This show's in 119 countries now. to look within your own community to see what's beyond uh, your doctor, to see what other healing avenues are available. I'm not saying not to go to your doctor, but I'm saying you can look beyond for healing resources. There's just so much out there. I know personally that has brought me incredible healing. So today I have Christine Knight, and she's clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm just thrilled to death to learn from her, and for you all to learn from her as well. So welcome, Christine.
Thank you so much, Teri. I'm so honored to be here.
Oh, yes. Again, I've told you beforehand, I'm like doing a little happy giddy dance because of reading everything that I could, stalking your website, and learning all that I could. And one of the first questions I had was, you talk about QHHT sessions. So what is QHHT?
Okay, well, QHHT saved my life, made a huge transition very easily in my life, and just gave me a different trajectory. So, backstory, long story short, is I have childhood developmental trauma, CPTSD, complex PTSD, and ACE score 7 out of 10. So it's hit me really hard after my divorce. And this happens a lot of times with complex PTSD. It can be suppressed and shoved down. And a lot of times we're even high achievers. We get into a lot of different projects and we excel in those areas, trying to bring value and worth to ourselves. So I was climbing the corporate ladder and a single mom at that time. And I was having this issue that I called PTSD spirals. And what that is I did not know when it would show up. And it happened during my marriage too, but it could be a TV commercial, or a scene starts on a movie, or somebody telling a story. And I would just go. I was a very controlled, stoic, robot-like, emotionless, dissociated
Yes.
person. Um, so I thought that I really had it together and had everything under control. But anytime this would happen, I didn't see it coming, and it would happen so quickly that I would just spiral into like convulsions, shaking, couldn't stand up, vomiting, crying uncontrollably, and I couldn't stop it. So it was very, I mean, I learned along the lines later about the nervous system and being triggered and it going into a state that can't be controlled logically. So I kind of tolerated that through my marriage and just tried to control my environment. I just won't watch TV. I just won't listen to watch movies. I won't listen to music. I won't do any of this stuff. Just very controlled environment. And it was working, but they got worse after my divorce. And I was in a self-defense class. The last time this happened, I was in a self-defense class, and I was with a coworker of mine. So I wasn't in the office. It never happened at work, but because a coworker was with me in the self-defense class, it was triggered by a story of an attack. So just the story of the attack and hearing about the kids seeing the attack caused the spiral. And I ran out of the room, went to the bathroom, and my coworker was just so, worried about me and didn't know what was going on. She wanted to call 911, and I was like, okay, nobody can know that I don't have my stuff together, you know? So I was in a leadership role in, corporate environment. So I didn't want anybody to know that I wasn't fully in control. So I set out on a mission because I had seen about 5 or 6 different therapists, just psychotherapists, psychologists, and none of them could help me. Some of them even sat across from me and said, I don't know why you're here. You have your stuff together. Like your life is really good. I don't know how I can help you. And then the last psychologist I went to was a PhD, and he was really good, but he said the kind of anger issues that you have with these spirals, because it's through childhood developmental trauma, it's so deep embedded in you that you can't cure it. You can only learn to cope with it. And this is one thing I do love about my background is you don't tell me, I will tell you. And I leaned up and was like, watch me, and I was like, I even had that part, what I know is parts now, and I can explain that too. A very angry, rageful warrior type part inside of me. So I left, never saw them again, but I was still searching. I was reading books. I was just trying different modalities. I was trying Reiki, massage therapy, the sound bowl therapy things, and the tuning, like the energy tuning thing. And things were helping, but it wasn't getting like to that deep core embedded issue. So I was sitting on my couch one day and I was folding laundry. Actually, it was a Saturday morning, and I would watch PBS because they didn't have commercials, so I wouldn't get triggered. So I was in a very controlled environment, which is awful to live that way. I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore. So I'm watching this PBS special. It's Wayne Dyer. I had read quite a few of his books, and he was talking about being diagnosed with leukemia, and that this person had written him from New York about this type of session that she can perform, where it's a past life regression type session that gets to the core of your issues and can clear them and heal them. And so he had the person with him at I believe it was in Canada, that he was doing the live show that was on PBS, and he brought the person out onto the stage and said, this is Mira, and this is what she does to help cure you of physical, emotional, whatever ailments that you have. And as soon as she walked out on that stage, I was like, that's her. That's her. I know it. I'm going there. I didn't care if I had to go to Tahiti or, Alaska, wherever. I didn't care where I had to go. I was going to go there. So at the end of the PBS segment, there was an email for her. So I sent her an email and didn't hear anything back for about 3 months. 3 months later, she emails me back and she says, I will be in Chicago at a hotel doing these sessions, and for these days, if you can make it, great. Okay, I'm a single mom, no child support, no spousal support, raising a kid on my own in an expensive place because I wanted a good school. I didn't care. It just by chance, I was working in California too and flying back and forth. So on one of the trips back, I took a long layover in Chicago, rented a car, drove to the hotel, had a session. And it was just, sometimes there's just not words. Like there's just, it was so phenomenal where I went. It was another dimension. And I had like this council of guides that told me why I had the life that I had, that it was chosen because I am supposed to help people, and I needed to be able to really relate to a lot of different types of experiences in order to help people and really have the compassion. And they were telling me, you have to learn more compassion. You're not compassionate enough. You have to learn more compassion. So, and that was the word they used too, but they told me all kinds of other stuff like time is just an illusion.
Oh my gosh, that's one of the messages I got. Yes.
And they were like hammering that in me the whole session, and the session lasted long. So it can go from 4 to 6 hours, this kind of a session, but it uses a hypnosis technique to get into the subconscious, but then to like the higher self, and then the superconscious of the human collective consciousness. So, and I didn't know anything from anything at this point. I just want cured of my PTSD spirals. Please help me. So it was just a phenomenal session. When I when it was done, I just said, this is amazing. Like, I know that this is going to change my life forever. Where did you learn this? And she told me Dolores Cannon in Arkansas. So I fly, I fly down to Arkansas for a week. I believe it was like a month after that, and was trained in this hypnosis technique. It's called quantum healing hypnosis technique, QHHT. Dolores Cannon developed this over, I believe, 40 years. And she tells her whole story and everything, how she got started in it. It was a fluke. It was by mistake. And she's written, I know, at least 17 books, but maybe a little bit more. And I was trained by her, I believe it was about a year before she passed. And now her daughter has taken over and still continues that training now today. But for me, this was over 10 years ago. So I learned the technique. I kept doing the technique for people, just to help them out on the side. Well, I was working full time and going to college and getting all kinds of certifications and things. So I fell in love with the potential that this technique has to help people in a way that I didn't see any other modality helping. So even like the forks, like the tuning forks, or a Reiki session or a massage session, you go in, you feel great, you're light, you leave, you're great, feel very, very light and cared for. But then what happens? The same programming in our subconscious from our childhood comes back in. Those parts of us that are really scared and trying to keep our environment safe and living in fear and living blocked off and disconnected are still there. So it can go really well for a little while, but then something's going to trigger it and it's going to come back in. So there were people that I wasn't able to help sometimes. And then sometimes there were people that I helped for a little while, and then they would come back and be like, well, it's still happening, it's come back. And I had my own layers. I've been working with this over 10 years, layer after layer after layer of breaking habits, changing my thoughts, changing my negative thoughts into positive thoughts. And that would take years. I would read the books, try to apply it, and just like go back and forth. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, for years and years. And then I started a master's degree program because I wanted to change careers and become a therapist, because I wanted to be a therapist that was different than the therapist that I had seen. I'm not going to sit across from somebody and say, oh, I can't help you, or you have it all together. No, because I've gone that route, the long, painful, scenic route. Now I know what to look for. Now I know, as soon as I see it in somebody, oh, okay, go ahead and tell me your story. Go ahead, that's all right. And then we're going to get to the really good stuff here in a second, And in that process, I stumbled across somebody named Richard Schwartz.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Schwartz, over about 40 years, developed what he calls internal family systems, IFS.
Yes.
So I read the book No Bad Parts. It was the first book he wrote for the public, instead of academia. And it was a second to the QHHT. It changed my life. When I read it, so many things clicked as to why things would still be triggered, why they were still happening. So I took part in a book club with it's TRF, it's Trauma Research Foundation. They had a book club of No Bad Parts back in March and April of this year. So I attended the book club, participated in the discussion groups, and that was life-changing. And then I was already studying hypnotherapy. I wanted to advance my skills in hypnotherapy to be able to help more people. So on the last session for that book club of No Bad Parts, Dr. Schwartz, what he hates, I shouldn't say he hates, he prefers to be called Dick. Okay, so I'm just going to call him Dick from now on because he's so down to earth and he's so relatable. It was great speaking with him, and I wanted to talk to him specifically because I almost wanted permission to be able to use the IFS model in dialoguing with parts of us using hypnotherapy. Because when I read the book, there were some parts of myself I could get to easily, and there were other parts where I knew that they were in there and I couldn't get to them, especially my anger part. So the IFS model, and as it just so happens, parts therapy and hypnotherapy are along the same lines of, they're very, very similar. There's some things that are different in them, but I want to join the two. And I wanted his permission to use hypnotherapy to get in touch with the inner parts. And he said, absolutely, that's a great way to go ahead and discover the parts and dialogue with them, as long, he said, as long as it's client led. Let the client lead the dialogue. Do not put, your own interpretations or words or anything in there. Client led. I said, yes, sir. So as I continued studying hypnotherapy and learned more about parts therapy, I saw how they were very similar. So it's almost like IFS, the way that I look at it, IFS has a really good part of the lead-in, and parts therapy and hypnotherapy has a really good part of the end of the session. In IFS, it's continual. It's continual. You can keep talking to the same part of yourself and healing it and getting it to trust you and everything for a while. Okay. 6 months, 6 years. Okay. And mapping out all the parts and all that stuff. I love the mapping of the parts. And I even buy toys. Like, here's one of my toys.
Yeah.
This is a knight. This is because I'm a knight. This is a knight in shining armor, but it's really just a little chicken inside. See the chicken? Because I was just really scared, and that's what was driving so many thoughts and behaviors in me. I was just really scared. So anyway, the parts therapy and hypnotherapy has the back end of it that I really like, where you heal the part in that session and you grow up the part in that session and reintegrate that disconnected part of ourselves back into the whole self.
I have goosebumps.
So it's really, really hard to get into the IFS Institute training. You have to be selected in a lottery. So I've been applying for it since April, since meeting Dick on that book discussion group in April. I've been applying, and I just got selected in the lottery. So I'm hoping I should start training in January, but I have to wait. Like, you have to file a formal application and then be accepted through that application. So there is one more step I have to do. But I am so hopeful that I get into the IFS training and then can really incorporate it with parts therapy. And I want to do a lot more study in parts therapy and then kind of interweave the techniques just to do some research. And then, of course, that brought me to, well, you know what? I don't really want to be a talk therapist. I want to be a hypnotherapist, and I want to do, evidence-based research to show the benefits of hypnotherapy in healing us mentally, emotionally, physically. And there's a lot of evidence-based studies in medical journals now of clinical hypnotherapy healing physical ailments like IBS, insomnia, migraines, and it's even used in like integrative cancer treatment and stuff. So I'm very, very excited. So I changed my master's degree to a non-licensure track, and I'm going to finish next semester and then start a PhD.
Wow. Well, I'm just applauding you. There was so much there that I was like, oh, you saw me shaking my head yes a lot and cheering and clapping quietly, but because I didn't want to interrupt, because Wow, so powerful. I love, love, love how you're interweaving these two um, approaches. As a matter of fact, my second most watched video on YouTube is an interview about IFS, and it's just because it really resonates with people. I
Yeah.
took a course recently in the last couple of months. I'm on a physical healing journey, and we did some parts work as well. And I had to get on a flight to go visit my mom who had broken her femur. She's 86,
Oh,
and needed a partial hip replacement. Well, I
uh,
was like, I can't get on a plane by myself. I haven't flown by myself since I was 15 years old. That was before like the last of the really horrific trauma and before panic attacks and heightened
mm,
anxiety. And I said, what if I have a panic attack? What if I, all of the what ifs? And because I'm an avoidance person,
mm,
like you,
mm.
I'm so relating to the avoidance part of it. Well, I just won't watch TV. Well, I just won't. Right. And but I was like, I have to go see my mom. So I did this course and got on that plane, and I was talking to my parts. It was amazing. No panic, no anxiety, both directions. So
Very good.
powerful. So yes, my soul hugs yours because what powerful work you're doing in helping others heal.
Oh yeah. So I recommend the book No Bad Parts to everybody. I have it right here in my library, and look, look at this book. This is all the notes and everything.
Yes, I do the same.
But
I have
no
stars and
bad.
highlights and stickies, and yes.
Yeah, there's so many blogs that I'm like, I need to get in there and write it, and yeah, I'll be starting that shortly soon here now that the office is set up and everything. But great book. He's just very relatable. He gives good examples. He gives links of podcasts and videos that you can go watch and see it. Because some people might just prefer that they just do the IFS model and work with the therapist, and and that's great. That's great.
Right.
Anything that people can do to heal themselves, which when I hear the word heal, I just, through my journey, my long, very roundabout, if there's a hard way to do something, I'll find it, journey.
Yes. Uh,
um, it's it's really reconnecting back with our whole self, our
yeah.
true self. And Dick even uses that the word self-led. That's the goal, is to be self-led, not to be led by triggers or behaviors that are just run as strategies trying to get our needs met from these disconnected parts of us. So my instructor in the Institute of Clinical Hypnotherapy, where I go, I'm finishing up my clinical practicals now, and it's so funny because I'm a visual person. So when she gives the analogy of the parts inside of us, like little minions on a school bus, and the whole self is the driver of the bus, like duct tape to the back emergency room door. And that's exactly what it's like when we're triggered. This certain minion jumps into the driver's seat, and it's like, I'm 3, but I know how to drive this bus.
Yes. That's
And
a
the driver,
great visual, and I love it.
yeah, because
Well,
people can say it's like I'm watching myself and I can't stop myself,
yeah.
or I see me doing this, but I can't stop myself. It's because that logical reasoning mind was not online when that behavior was programmed into the subconscious.
And that's such a great valid point. And what I was just going to bring up is that, in my own healing journey is we've done this incredible work. And like you, I've just done so many different healing modalities, and they've all contributed to where I am today without living panic free. But there's those last little things, like I live on Hilton Head Island and I can't be on the beach because I'm terrified of open spaces. So
Mm-hmm.
where is that coming from? And so really
Mm-hmm.
trying to get to that. Well,
Mm-hmm.
I've had multiple people say to me, Teri, this is something you just can't access an EMDR. Like I've done incredible healing work in EMDR, but it either happened prior to age 3 where I just can't access the memory, or it's past life, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't get to it. And that's why I love the idea of the hypnotherapy, because
Mm-hmm.
who can help people then tap into those types of things, right?
Oh, yes. So that's why I selected a school in clinical hypnotherapy that not only was accredited through the Board of Education, where it's a diploma program, but it goes all the way. It goes past clinicals to transpersonal hypnotherapy. And that works along with QHHT, where it goes into in the womb, before the womb, life between lives, planning out this life, and past lives. And this school covers all of that. That's why I was like, this is my jam. I'm going all the way. Like,
Right.
this is what I love. And the more the more I progressed through the programs, the more I loved it. So yeah, I'm
Yes.
going all the way. I'm able to do pieces of that now with QHHT, but the training is just so much more extensive in this school. And I mean, I'm going to have, by the time I'm done, I'm going to have over 1,000 hours of training. It's in all these areas. So whether it's parts or, transpersonal, past life, you know, this life regression. I do regression therapy too, where we take an issue, and this works better if it's a broad issue, where parts works better if it's a narrow issue. So if it's a broad issue and the person doesn't know where it comes from, the session takes them back to the memory where that thinking or that behavior or that strategy first started. And usually it surprises. Like because I do this healing work myself. I have my own hypnotherapist that I work with, and as parts come up or triggers come up, I will go and have sessions. And one was like scarcity thinking,
Yeah.
and I did a regression therapy session back to the original memory, and I can remember it now, but I hadn't thought about that for years. I mean, I was in kindergarten standing at a bus stop. I was like, that's where it started. But see, that's not. So this is the other thing that's very, very interesting, and I'm just like chomping at the bit to get started in a PhD program to start writing and like researching and writing about these things. There are traumatic events that happen in all of our lives, but we find out that it is the traumatic event, but it's so much more than that. It's like in hypnotherapy, in clinical hypnotherapy, we call it the initial sensitizing event. But then that becomes the initial sensitizing relationship. So there was a relationship, most likely with a primary caregiver, that did not process that traumatic event in the correct way, which of course we don't know the correct way. None of us were raised with the
Right.
correct way. We don't know the correct way now, but now we can use hypnotherapy to go back to that memory, have an authentic emotional release with that person in that situation, and then heal that relationship, because it's all our own projections. The reality that we create around us is based on our own projections. So that's why you can have a family with 3 children. They all have different experiences of how their childhood was. And it could be a bad childhood, a hard childhood,
Yeah.
violent childhood. And one child is saying, oh, it was so awful. I have all these problems because of it. And the other child can be saying, oh, it was great. It wasn't that bad, when there's only, a few years difference in ages.
Right.
It's our own projections. And that's what really ultimately needs to be healed.
Yes, that's what got me into psychology. My degree's in psychology. And I
Mm.
remember I went through 2 horrific bank robberies in my early 20s, and my mom had gone through 2 horrific bank robberies, very, very similar. Like one of them, a gun held to her head, one of them, a gun held to my head, like just very, very similar. And I always, like, in my 20s was like, she's fine. She's fine. Like, how did she get through it where I'm having panic attacks and curled up in a ball and sobbing and having these flashbacks and nightmares and horrible, horrible, just horrible trauma response. Um, and so that's why I ended up going into psychology, because I wanted to understand, how did it impact her so differently than it impacted me. I now understand she dove into vodka. And so she, self-medicated with booze, but it was still so fascinating to me at the time, because I was like, how do we all respond so differently? I get it now. But at the time, I wanted to understand that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of times we might think that somebody does have it together and it didn't affect them. But really it did, and it just comes out in different ways. There's a lot of self-denial going on. I had a lot of self-denial in my own life, until I found these methods of getting in touch with it, of revealing it. And it was something I was actively searching for, what I was denying, and I still couldn't see it because it was so well hidden. And even the first couple parts therapy sessions that I had with my hypnotherapist, there was, because it's very visual, like you're just in this visualization, seeing it all play out, and the parts show up in different ways, and they look different. And in one of the beginning ones, I looked out the window and there was a line of parts like going, me next, me next. And I could see there was one that was hiding around and wouldn't show its face. And it took me 3 sessions to get to that one.
Wow.
Yeah.
So powerful and beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
again, I could sit here and talk to you for hours on end about all of this, because it's fascinating and beautiful and healing. So is there anything that you wanted to touch upon that we haven't had an opportunity to talk about yet?
Oh my goodness, I'll have you here for another 8 hours. Because it's so much, it's so connected. We're all connected. We're interconnected. That's why I really love this kind of collaboration here. We're all here to help each other and support each other. But we can only do that to the extent that we do it for ourselves. Like, we can only be kind to other people to the extent that we're kind to ourselves. So really, it's so needed right now. This is the time. And I have the full age range of clients, from very young to very old. And it's needed across the board, all generations, all ages of people, all demographics. There's something in all of us that we need to get in touch with, and we need to reconnect with. And that really is the beginning. I mean, I thought I've been healing for 15 years, but man, if I could have found this first. Man, if I could have found this first. I mean, I know I wasn't supposed to, but it would have, yeah, it would have changed. It would
I mean, I get the same message, and I also so relate to sitting across from someone who tells you, well, you're just kind of, that trauma happened, and you just have to learn coping skills to deal with it. No, no, that's not an option. And so, yeah, again, I know it's all happened in the way it's supposed to have unfolded. And again, this conversation today, it's just another one of those beautiful gifts that I'm like, yes, I'm making an appointment, because this is next on my list. Thanks, God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So how do folks get in touch with you? How do they connect?
The easiest way to connect with me is through my website. So it's hiltonheadhypnotherapy.com. And there's a link on there where they can schedule a free consultation call with me and ask me any questions, tell me any issues. Everything is completely confidential, and determine if it's something that's right for them.
Awesome. Can you do virtual sessions, or is it all in person?
Yes. The QHHT session specifically, in that association, we are not permitted to do that online. It has to be in person. So for a QHHT session specifically, that has to be in person. But for clinical hypnotherapy or transpersonal hypnotherapy, parts therapy, regression, all that can be done online.
Wonderful. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's just been such a joy. I feel so blessed to one have met you, but yeah, have you be a part of this series. So thank you.
Yes, I'm so honored and just I'm I feel like I took up um the whole meeting time talking because I just get so excited about this.
Oh,
I just love it so much. It's my life now, you
yeah.
know?
Well, I just sit here. I loved listening, and I loved again shaking my head and applauding and cheering you on quietly because I was like, yes, I so related to so much of what you were saying, and I know the audience will as well. And I hope everyone reaches out in some way and connects with you. Yeah.
Yes, any way, it just you can schedule a call and just ask about other, other issues or other advice for
Yeah.
something going on. I never had a gun to my head.
Yeah. Oh,
Um, but
well, and that one
just
was so,
about
yeah, that one was so crazy because they didn't catch them after that first bank robbery. And 3 months
mm,
later, I had just switched from that branch of that bank to our main office. And 3 months later, those same bank robbers would come back. And only this time, the assailant who had held the gun to my head pulled the trigger and murdered my coworker, Marsha Berger. And my little
oh
sister was a
my,
teller. There's so much to it. Like I know I keep telling everybody I've been writing this book for 8 years. Eventually it'll get done. But yeah, it's almost like Hollywood script kind of stuff and very
write it,
powerful.
write it and get
Mm,
it out. I cannot recommend that enough. My inner guidance was after me for years to write my book, and I finally sat down last winter and I finished it 2 days before my birthday on Good Friday this year. And now of course I'm editing and editing and editing, but just
yeah.
getting it out of me was just that was healing. That was therapeutic. Because I didn't have to remember the details of stuff anymore. It was almost like this
Oh my
release
gosh, Christine, that's
to
so
really work on
powerful.
it, really make the
Yeah.
time
Thank
and
you.
my guidance was like, if you would just sit down and do it, you would be done in 2 weeks. I just sat down and did it. I was done in 2 weeks.
You may have given me an aha moment just now because I'm almost like I'm wondering if I'm not holding on to these things because I'm afraid I'll forget it and I'm afraid I'll understand why I've had this history or my purpose. I'm gonna have to journal on
I have
that.
chills. I have chills all over my body right now, and that's the sign. Yeah, that
Wow.
do it, because that's when I finally finished my book. That's when I stumbled upon, no bad
Ooh,
parts and IFS and parts therapy, and then it was all just so easy because it was all like released already.
yeah.
So
Oh my
yes,
gosh, I have goosies all
definitely.
over too.
Yeah,
Cool.
there might be something really big there.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. Everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Bye.
Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock again. Just wanted to thank you for listening to the episode today and remind you to visit my website as well as the academy.teriwellbrock.com for the courses. But if you go to my website, teriwellbrock.com, you can sign up for my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, which is also jam-packed with information and strategies and blog pieces and guest blog pieces and links to shows. And just a great space for, again, healing. Thanks for, again, being here and being a part of this healing space. I very much appreciate you. All right. Bye bye.